This episode of the Auld Triangle is dedicated to the memory of Evan Dunn.
Evan was a beloved member of Team KF who unfortunately lost a battle with a long-term illness. I was chatting with Chris Fields and he was saying that he'd always be up watching the lads, the pro lads, sparring and training. He was always around the club. And yeah, just a very, very sad story. We know that we were even told he tuned in to listen to us on occasion, especially when the Team KF lads were on. So he was very much a huge part of the club, and our heartfelt condolences go out to everyone at Team KF and to Evan's family.
We are back for episode 68 of the Auld Triangle. I used to open up the podcast with that all the time, but I didn't really like it. We are back, but we are back for episode 68. The old intros and the outros are not as easy as they appear to be, lads. On the old, you were fretting it too when you were covering for me, Andy, that time when you were
piece of cake.
But we're back for episode 68. A huge time for Irish mixed martial arts. Obviously, big fights coming up for Paul Hughes. Big fight that's already happened with Will Fleury at Octagon. We'll cover that a little bit later on. Andy was on the ground in FAI, and we're going to hear from some of the coaches, some of the teammates and everything of Paul Hughes. And from, on SevereMMA.com, Paul Hughes himself, Andy has got it all covered there ahead of his big fight against AJ McKee, and that's the perfect fight that we got to get kicked off on this week's podcast, lads. It's an absolutely the biggest fight in Irish mixed martial arts in recent memory. I think, obviously you're talking like a couple of big fights for Ian Gary and stuff like that, but I would put this fight, Paul Hughes versus AJ McKee, on a par with some of the fights that Ian Gary has had in the UFC. The stature of the fight, the where it is, obviously on the Francis Ngannou card, a big pay-per-view card. And the first thing, Andy, I guess I'll throw to you is this fight is kind of snuck up all of the blue. Only a couple of days away right now, and we're getting hot and heavy. And I was looking forward to it, and then I kind of forgot about it for a little while, and then I was like, holy shit, is this only a couple of days away? And yes, it is only a couple of days away. How are you feeling ahead of the big fight for Paul Hughes?
It feels massive, like it really does, and I agree. It has kind of snuck up. Like obviously we had seen Paul on the bits on Bellator when he was kind of put in the spot where himself and AJ are kind of going back and forth on Zoom. They had a bit of an awkward, bit of a funny interaction. But obviously now fight week, it's all ramping up. It's all going. Like this fight card is going to take center stage, and like what a humongous platform and what an opportunity Paul Hughes has in front of him here. And like you look at the betting odds, you look at the betting lines, he's the underdog. This is the first time, and I'd say I don't even know. I couldn't even tell you. I'd have to go and look when the last time Paul Hughes was an underdog going into a fight. And now he's going in here taking on a former champion and a guy who, like, usually you're talking a former Bellator champion. They're probably 35. They're probably, on the tail end of their career. This is AJ McKee in the absolute prime of his career, looking incredibly dangerous. And we're going to find out. Like when Paul Hughes broke onto the scene with his pro debut, the Irish scene kind of was like, whoa, this is something different here. And Paul has the opportunity now on the world stage, if he can go out here and take out AJ McKee, to really just put the entire world on notice and establish himself as one of the best 155-pounders in the world, full stop.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super excited for, obviously, Paul and for an Irishman to be given a stage like this to be able to perform. But Caoilte, what has me also excited as well, and sure has all of us excited, is the actual matchup itself and two of these guys' skill sets pitted against one another. I mean, when you're looking at how both of these guys match up, Caoilte, what kind of a fight are you expecting to see when they do throw down on the 19th?
Well, to be honest, it's one of those things go either way, but I think it's going to be a lot of heavy wrestling pressure from AJ McGee. I don't think he's going to want to stand with Paul Hughes, to be honest. Paul Hughes' striking's been phenomenal now. I think the both of them will bring out the best in each other, and it's going to be it'll be very difficult. AJ is a tricky customer. We've seen it all throughout his career. He had that sensational run of, was it 18-0 before before losing to Patricio, and I wouldn't want to say he was untouchable, but he was very, very difficult man to beat, and has proven so, and that's in all aspects. But yeah, I think it's I think for Paul, it's one of those, if he can get his shots landed on the feet, I think it's going to be one of those fights where he could win it, because I do rate the grappling of AJ McGee so highly. So yeah, clashes, maybe a little bit of clash of styles, but I think it'll all come down to who can get on the front foot, who can, I guess, I always say it, implement the game plan. It's the most cliche saying, but whoever can do that, I think is going to be I think that's going to lead the dance, so to say, or lead the fight in this case.
Look at you, you're talking about implementing game plans and everything like this. Like, maybe we can have an open-ended conversation between us all here, and right, like what should a game plan for Paul Hughes look like? I think you kind of highlighted it, and you kind of brushed over it a little bit there, Caoilte, in terms of, where we will probably give Paul the advantage here is on the feet, the speed of his strikes, the range of his combinations, but we have seen him scramble quite well in a couple of these fights as well, Andy, and it's a thing that excites me, is how he's going to be able to. Look, we talk about the in-between bits. You're going to have the striking, you're going to have the grappling, but you have those in-between bits. You have who's going to scramble the better, who's going to work better in the clinch, who's going to set up their takedowns better. And, obviously, I think AJ McKee will be the guy who's going to be leaning on the takedown a little bit more. Maybe not. We could be wrong. We'll find out. And that's what is maybe so exciting about this fight, Andy. But in terms of game plans and skill sets and everything like that, where's your head at in terms of where both of these guys match up against one another?
Well, I suppose where my head is at is that Paul Hughes has never fought anyone like AJ McKee before. Like, let's be completely honest about this. He has not fought anyone on the caliber of AJ McKee, and also anyone of the frame and the length. Like, he had those amazing fights against Morgan Charrier and against Jordan Vucenic, and even I'd say the James Hendon fight. I loved watching that one. But there are guys who are more kind of Paul's build, Paul's size. AJ is a very, very long fighter. And I think I'm not going to sit here and start telling him how he needs to fight, because the reality is I don't know. But I do think he needs to gain his respect, because AJ has fought the best of the best in the world. And he's going to come in here seeing Paul as, this is another prospect who's coming up, who hasn't faced anyone like me, who hasn't faced the caliber of competition that I have faced, and doesn't have the experience that I have. And it's up to Paul to, I think, get to force AJ McKee to respect him early. And I think that if he can get on the inside, I think like AJ McKee, when they're on the feet, will probably look to use his length and his kicks a lot more. And I think if Paul can get inside and let the hands go, like we've seen him put guys out at 155. He's looking very, very powerful, and I can see this fight going absolutely everywhere. To be honest, I can see mad scrambles. I can see Paul going for subs. I can see AJ going for subs. I think they're two very complete mixed martial artists. And I really just think it's about whoever, as Chris said, kind of leads the dance and imposes their will early in the fight. I think that's where we'll see it go. But also, we've seen Paul in wars before. We've seen him in back and forth wars. So I really don't know, and I think that's what excites me so much about this fight, is I do not know how this is going to go come Saturday night.
And you know what? I think it might be fair to say that Paul might not even know how it's going to go, because he hasn't fought this caliber of opponent in his career thus far. And it's fights like this that really bring you the level of momentum and drive into the camps, which can, elevate your level as well. So I definitely think we're going to see a leveled up Paul Hughes here. And I guess the big overhanging question is, will that leveled up version of Paul Hughes that we will see be enough to take out AJ McKee? Okay, we can liken all of their skills and, all of the areas where we think they might be more dominant. But there's one area for me that is glaring, and that that when we compare it, it's a non-comparison, and that's the experience factor inside the cage, and the experience in the level of opponents that both of these guys have faced as well. And I'm curious, Caoilte, if that is going to be a defining factor in who wins or who loses this fight.
Well, I think it could be definitely, because look at the lads that AJ McKee's fought. You know, he's fought veterans and he's fought them at lightweight as well. He's fought different frames, different styles, guys from all around the world, and that, you know, he's seen a lot more in there, and he's seen a lot, and he's felt a lot more in there against lads who might be even bigger lightweights than him. So I think that might play to the advantage of AJ McKee in this case. Now, the other side of it is we haven't seen Paul Hughes tested to that level yet. So now he's right. This is his opportunity to rise to the occasion. The experience he's had those wars, they're going to pay a lot of dividends here too. And if he can make it into the type of fight he wants to, you know, all those fights against other lads I mentioned for AJ McKee, they might go out the window, and it's all down to the two lads inside there. Yeah,
indeed. Andy, your thoughts?
I was just going to say to play devil's advocate, or not even to play devil's advocate, just to speak bluntly. We're obviously talking about the opponents that AJ McKee has faced, but to be fair to Hughes, in his 12-1 run, he has some brilliant experience. He's had 2 5-round fights, 2 5-round title fights. He's been in, I know, albeit it's on Cage Warriors, he's been these big moments where there's these kind of booming, roaring crowds. You had the Irish and the French and the Charrier fights jawing at each other, like these special moments that we've seen him have to dig deep in fights. We've seen him using his grappling, we've seen him using his striking, we've seen him putting lads out, and now we've seen him going up in weight class. Obviously, AJ McKee is a lot more experienced, but let's not forget, AJ McKee started at 145. That's where his title run was at as well. So it's not just Paul that, you know, is relatively new to 155 pounds. So I do think while AJ McKee undoubtedly has more experience and has faced better competition than Paul Hughes, I think that Hughes, when you consider he is the lesser experienced fighter coming into this, he has valuable experience from the competition that he has faced, if that makes sense. I think I've just a tongue twister there along the way, but I think you get what I'm trying to say.
I absolutely do. No, it's a valuable point. But I looked, and it's hard to ignore that in-cage experience. What does the in-cage experience give to you? It gives you more scenarios. It gives you more lessons on how you deal with certain scenarios, fight sequences, etc., etc. So I do agree with everything that you said. I think for a 12-1 fighter in Paul Hughes, that's a rock solid 12-1. With AJ McKee, I mean, I think he's had a solid run up through Bellator and fought some pretty good competition as well along the way. And you know, that's what gets me excited. But I think on a skill set perspective, I think obviously Paul hangs with him on the feet. I think Paul can hang with them, although I think AJ McKee is very dangerous and very opportunistic with his submissions. So I think if the fight hits the mat, Paul is going to have to be super careful, you know, not to get impatient if things aren't going his way, and not to force positions as well, because, you know, that's going to lead to AJ McKee snatching up a choke or snatching up an arm, or maybe whatever he wants to do. He's pulled off some crazy submissions, very unorthodox grappling style with AJ McKee. Now, on the feet, you're also going to have to be careful if you're Paul Hughes. You can't be rushing forward too much as well and leaving yourself open to get taken down. Like, I know Paul is going to tell you that he's happy that the fight will go anywhere, but I think, you know, we would all be in agreement, and maybe deep down, and I don't want to speak for Paul, I think he feels that he probably would be able to get AJ McKee if this fight was a straight striking battle, but I don't think that's what we're going to get. You know, and I think Paul is going to be happy with that too. But, you know, the big thing that hangs over me is that in-cage experience that AJ McKee has. I'm very curious to see if Paul can deal with certain scenarios and certain sequences that this fight is going to kind of give to both fighters, and who'll be able to kind of, you know, maybe change their game plan, or if something isn't working, switch something up. You know what I mean? You need that in-cage experience for that. And, you know, I think in terms of experience for both of these guys, like Andy said, the 12-1 for Paul stacks up a hell of a lot better than a lot of other 12-1 fighters out there right now, which begs the question. I'll ask the easy one first. I'll give Caoilte the easy question. I'll give Andy the hard. Where does a win leave Paul Hughes here?
Oh, pretty near the top of the division, really. Let's be real. You know, he's going. I imagine, you know, he's going to the tournament next year. He's probably he'll be the man to beat, is the best way of putting it, if he wins this, because that is how it'd be a statement victory if he does get the win.
Yeah, 100%. Andy, I'm going to ask you, like I said, the difficult question. What does a loss mean here for Paul Hughes? Where does a loss send Paul Hughes?
I actually don't think that a loss here. Now, I think it depends on the type of loss, but even, let's say, worst case scenario for Paul Hughes, right? He goes in here, first round, and he gets knocked out by AJ McKee. I think that the jump that he has taken from fighting a guy like a Bobby King to an AJ McKee is so vast, so pronounced, that like this is what should be happening here is everyone going in here and expecting Paul Hughes to lose. And the fact that people are not en masse, and it's not, while he's an underdog, he's not a huge underdog in this fight. That shows the level of respect that people have for Paul. But the reality is we have not seen him fight a guy like AJ McKee. So if he goes in here and he loses, okay, it's a loss, but it's against AJ McKee. Like this, as Caoilte said, the winner of this will be going into the tournament as the favorite next year. And okay, you lose to AJ McKee, but that doesn't mean that you're back to square one. It means you've taken a big gamble here in going from a Bobby King straight to the top of the division. But I think that there's he'll go back into that tournament next year, and I really don't think his stock would diminish too much. Now, obviously, it does depend on the type of loss. But like, imagine you go in here and lose a decision to AJ McKee, like,
yeah.
It's not really a win, but like it kind of is a win. It's like, I think he's playing with house money in a sense, but he's not going to be thinking this at all. Like all he's thinking is, I'm going in here, I'm taking out AJ McKee, and could you imagine the scenes if he goes in and, like he's saying, he says he's going to stop him in 2 rounds, like fucking hell. Like the world, like he is. It's a new stratosphere if he does.
We talk about fighters a lot in stock, you know what I mean, and how much is your stock going to raise or how much is your stock going to fall, win or loss. And I think the risk reward in here for AJ is much higher than what it is for Paul, to be honest, because we're going back to that experience level and how long AJ has been around and the fighters that he's fought. Which we have to give credit to him for kind of stepping in and taking this fight. And obviously, all the credit goes to Paul for accepting this challenge as well, which is a huge jump up. And, a lot of people will liken Paul's kind of performance against Bobby King and try to compare that, and that he cannot perform the same as he did against Bobby King, against AJ McKee, because he's likely going to lose that. But I would counterpoint that argument with, I think that, with all due respect to Bobby King, I don't think that was a fight that was an introductory fight for Paul into the organization. That I think Paul was motivated by his debut more so than he was motivated by the opposition that he was fighting. And I think when you have that, maybe I'm wrong. It'd be a good question to ask him.
It wasn't his best performance, and like, you're better off having your not best performance against.
Why was that? Sometimes it's hard. I just want to try and think and put myself in Paul's shoes here. Why is that? Because you're asking for bigger and better fighters and stuff, and maybe you're not getting motivated to train for a guy like Bobby King. But you know what? You're getting motivated for an opportunity like this. So I think that excites me more than anything. Before we go over and hear from some of the FAI crew that Andy spoke to, let's ask the hard questions here. How do we think?
Don't do it.
How do we think this fight is going to go?
I think it's going to be a big win for the fans scene.
No fence, no staying on the fence on this one, boys. Let's give our honest opinion.
Do you know what? Call me a shill, call me a homer, call me a complete Irish bias. I think Paul Hughes gets it done. I don't know how. I think it'll eat. I think Paul Hughes' decision.
Yeah.
Paul Hughes' decision.
Fair shout. And it's not bias. Like, I mean, this fight is a fucking close fight. Leave Irish bias aside. Paul Hughes is an elite level fighter.
And I'll give some reasoning, I suppose. we were just talking about Bobby King there, and maybe not being, and albeit we're talking about a fight where he finished it in the second round, and we're saying, oh, you know, maybe it wasn't his greatest performance, but he had admitted that himself. But what always comes, where I come back to is, think back to the Jordan Vucenic first fight and then the second fight, and that was in the space of 2 years, and the massive difference, like they were neck and neck fighters in that first fight. And like when they fought in that rematch, Paul Hughes had taken such a leap where it wasn't even close. And that was a 2 year gap. It's now been 2 years where Hughes has been leveling up. He's growing into that frame. He's at a new weight class where he's not cutting himself down. He's not starving himself to make the weight. And he's also been going over, albeit I know he's been an FAI for this one. He's been going over and fighting the likes of Ilia Topuria and getting all these rounds with absolute killers, and he knows his level. I think that he is a fighter who is continuing to grow and continuing to level up. And I don't think we've seen the best Paul Hughes yet in a cage. I don't know. We may have seen, and the same could be said for AJ McKee, but that's what I'm basing that pick on, is I don't think we've seen the best Paul Hughes yet in a cage.
Very valuable point. I will come in and say that we definitely haven't seen the best Paul Hughes inside of the cage yet. I think fights like this are going to help him be a better fighter in the future, win or lose, to be honest, right? I'm really struggling on this one because, you know, I don't want to be biased, but if I'm looking at fighter A versus fighter B here, and you asked me the reason why I keep bringing up experience, and experience is so important inside the cage. And I think the experience that AJ McKee, this is going to be a close fight. I think this is going to go to a decision. And I think some of AJ McKee's in-cage experience might play into his favor in this fight in certain situations and knowing what to do. And I feel that this is going to be a razor-close decision that, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if AJ McKee got it. And I am kind of leaning a little bit towards AJ McKee. But maybe that's because we haven't seen the best of Paul Hughes yet. Has he gotten himself to a level where he can go out there and win a fight like this? That's what I'm excited to see. And yeah, I mean,
you're right though. That's the way, because like I would not be surprised at all if AJ McKee went out here and
look at I'm not surprised if Paul Hughes gets his hand raised, but my pick for this fight, I'm afraid to say, is probably, I think AJ McKee might eke it out with the level of experience that he has garnered so far in his mixed martial arts career. And that's not going to be a stain on Paul if that happens. And I hope I'm fucking wrong, but I have to be honest and give my honest opinion.
100%. And that's why if Paul Hughes can go out and do it, it's such an achievement. Like it makes it, because this, like they're probably, like, look, I'll be honest, there probably is a bit of bias in my pick. I don't know. Like maybe there is.
No, but like some of your reasoning and justification is completely valid given the conversation that we've just had about this fight. It's like, you know, this has a chance. Like, you know, you mentioned the Vucenic fight, right? And I think we can have that conversation about Paul in his next fight if he doesn't get the job done again. Imagine the type of fighter that he's going to be and the jump that we seen him make after that Vucenic loss. If he does go out there and you know, he's going to think that he's ready, he's going to be confident, and he has every right to think about it. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's the 15 minutes we're going to really find out if he's ready or not. And I hope I'm wrong. I think this is a big fight. I think he has the capabilities of doing it, but I just think at this stage of AJ McKee's career, I think, you know, the skill set that he possesses and the experience he possesses, I feel that when his back is against the wall, he has the ability to make those decisions, to switch up game plans, to create scenarios in this fight that is going to see him look more favorable in the eyes of the judges, to be honest. And yeah, that's my opinion on the fight. I've been fucking over and back on this a lot. I've been thinking a lot about it, but it's out there now. I can't go back. Caoilte, very curious, very curious, Caoilte, to hear what you think of how the fight is going to go and who's going to be the winner.
Yeah, look, it's one of those things. Hart says Paul Head has been saying AJ McGee for quite a while since I heard about the fight. Purely, I look at the record, I look at the experience, like you mentioned, I look at the amount of time he's had at lightweight, and I think, and that's what would make me would have me leaning towards AJ. Just the amount, just the names alone, nearly, and the amount of time he spent against some of that top level, like, and that's no disrespect to any Paul Hughes opponents, you know, Jordan Vucenic and Morgan Charrier, two massive names, but I'm looking at likes of Patricio Pitbull, Clay Collard, Sidney Outlaw, who's very good in his own right, and then Georgie Carr. You know, I look at some of the names, and that's what makes me lean there.
Even Georgie Carr-Canyon, like,
he's So like that's what makes me lean towards that, and that's where like the head. That's where I'm there's that battle going on in my head about, okay, who do I really think? But then the other side of it is I look at it, I think, okay, Paul Hughes is a man who always rises to the occasion, and he always has so far in his career, and this can be probably this is the biggest one of his career to date, and there's not really much pressure on him here, and all the pressure's on AJ McKee. He's probably had to deal with that a long time, but Paul's going in here as he will be the, you know, as we mentioned, he's the underdog, and I don't want to say he's nothing. He's a fight to lose, but he's nothing to, not as if he does nothing to lose, but he has a lot less risk than AJ McKee does in this fight. And having that, I guess, fighting with a bit more freedom makes me think that, okay, Paul Hughes could really pull off the upset here. And that's what's making me lean that way. So yeah, look, I'm on the fence. I'm blabbering on. I don't know. I think...
Come on,
take the damn pick.
I go on. I think this decision, and I'm gonna go.
Like this, I like how he's saying that the method, but he's not giving us the fighter name.
No. I'm building it up. I'm building it up. I think Paul's gonna start very, very strong. AJ McKee brings it back in second round. All goes down to third round, and then they're both going out. And then down the final minute, I do think that's where one big heavy shot and Paul Hughes decision. There we go.
Oh, he's got
the story's
Oh, making me out to look like the fucking prick. Thanks, fellas.
I started on that and I went the other way, so
you fucking had me out line and sinker there. I thought I wasn't going to be alone. But look, before we move on, geez, like, this is
what makes the fight so great.
100%. And like, look at 25 minutes in, I could talk another 25 minutes about this fight, absolutely. But we'll head over to FAI. We'll hear what the lads had to say to Andy about this fight as well. We got plenty of other Irish action to talk about a little bit later on in the podcast. Let's head on over to Andy and check out some of the interviews from FAI.
Rhys McKee.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Just
this is a huge week, huh?
Massive week for Irish MMA. That's what I was saying to you off camera. Like, it's hard to believe it's finally here. It's a big fight.
Yeah, like I wanted to obviously chat to Paul, but I wanted to get kind of the vibe and the reaction, or not a reaction, but just to chat to you basically ahead of the fight. You are a man who has been around the Irish MMA scene a long time now. Does this feel as big to you as it does? Like, this feels, Paul had the Cage Warriors fights, of course. He's had some huge nights in his career already, but this feels to me like it's a next step. It's another level. Would you feel similarly?
Yeah, I think, like, if you take McGregor out of the question, this is the biggest Irish MMA fight we've probably ever had. People who have known Paul know he's a big character, but the nights, his nights in Cage Warriors have been big, but like, this is the nights he deserves. You know, when you're talking AJ McKee, he's like relatively a household name in the MMA world, so for Paul to be in there now, he's in the right place.
Do you think it is? Because like I put out something on Twitter earlier on last week, being like, you know, what are the biggest Irish MMA fights in history outside of McGregor? And a lot of people did say that, you know, this could be the biggest. And like, when you consider, there's been Bellator titles, there's been other very big nights, but like, why do you feel like that this could be the biggest outside of a McGregor one?
I mean, Paul's brought the whole Irish MMA community with him. Like, you know, from his Cage Warriors fights, everybody, you know, the big news crew came with him. Everybody was, you know, obsessed with how the fights went. Everybody was asking what time's Paul on. He had the vlogs, he has the countdown. He's the full package. So everybody's attached to his journey. So I think that's why it's bigger. Like the Bellator stuff, all them other the world title fights, some massive fights. But there's been no attachment to the Irish MMA community. Like almost them people went on their own, where Paul has brought us all with him. And I feel like that's why we're all like almost feel part of it too.
You've obviously seen Paul grow for many years now. Where is he? You know, if you compare, say, the Paul who made his debut in Barra and lived the Irish scene alive to now, How much has he grown, I guess, over the last number of years?
It's just like chalk and cheese. He's been saying he's the best in the world, and he's the best in the world. Like, I genuinely feel, you put him in there against number 1, number 2 in the world, and Paul will come out on top. But it's time for him to prove that. It's time for him to prove what we've all said, what he said from day one. He said it before anybody else said it. He said it when he had the right to say it in the nicest way possible, and he'll know what I mean by that. Like, he's always said it, so he matches what he's saying now, and now's the right time for him to just put it in stone.
You're obviously his teammate, and I've no doubt every single person in this gym is saying, come this weekend, Paul's going to come out with his hand raised. But he's going in against a guy in AJ McKee, a former Bellator champion, a guy who has double the experience. I think he's 22-1 as a professional. It's a huge jump. How valuable do you think? Like Paul has a lot of experience. He doesn't have the same experience against the same opponents that AJ has fought, but he does have a lot of experience in the 5-5 minute round, the championship fights in Cage Wars. Does he have enough experience to match what AJ has faced?
Yeah, like on paper, maybe he doesn't have that experience, but what he does have is a career full of adversity. Like what Paul's had to battle through to even be an active fighter in this day and age is mad. The amount of injuries he's had, the amount of setbacks he's had. He's uprooted his whole life. He lives in a different place. He's been away for training camps. Adversity is Paul's middle name at the minute. Has AJ had that? Yes, he's had a lot of fights, but like, it might just be a little perfect AJ world in his land. So Paul's coming in with adversity. He's coming in with everything to prove and nothing to lose. AJ has all to lose. AJ is the guy that's meant to win on paper. People. Paul says everybody's writing him off. I don't think we are at all. But I think the MMA community think AJ is all his to lose. But yeah, I forgot the question. But
how do you see
when
you see the matchup? Like, how do you see this playing out?
Like Paul, whatever way he wants. Like, to be honest, I've watched a lot of AJ, and I was more impressed with him until I studied him, until I actually watched him and actually seen what he's good at. I don't think he is anything for Paul, and I think he's naive, and I think he's gonna watch Paul and think this is gonna be a much different night than how it is. Paul is one of them guys when you watch him, like, I'm saying this without saying anything bad, like, he's more impressive in person when you're training with him. Like, he's way more impressive when you feel it. When you watch him, you could be like, yeah, he's amazing. But when you feel him and like he's got a hold of you, or he's hitting you, or you're trying to hit him, like, it's different. Like, and it's different. And I'm saying that from someone in a weight group above. Like, he is big work. He's big trouble. And I think AJ, he's going to be too far in before he realizes that this is the big news. This is big news time.
I've watched, you guys were sparring here beforehand, and one thing I noticed that Paul seems to command a level of respect when he's walking. You can see that the little looks that teammates have towards him, they're they look to him with a level of respect. What does he mean to this gym? Like, what is his role within FAI, and what would this, an opportunity and a win do for the gym?
He's the door opener. Like, Paul was able to go off the grain, go off the linear line of how MMA fighters should go and where they should go and how they should do it. Like, we all thought we should only go a certain way and a certain path, and you should struggle until you make it. Where Paul took a step back, stepped outside of the box, and now he's opened a whole new door. So I think the young fighters in this gym, even the older fighters, maybe even I'm in there now, like, are showing that there's a different way to do this journey. So I think Paul's taught a lot of fighters about self-worth, which is massive. I think the looks you're seeing for respect is like almost Paul is showing, listen kids, there's a new way to do this. Don't think it's just the one way. So he's going to be massive for Irish MMA, and in a few years people are going to look back at what Paul done and that decision he made. Remember how wrong it was everybody said this is going to be the wrong decision. They're not saying it now. So, as Paul sits in this position, he's literally done a mad thing. So yeah, I'm a fan of it.
Yeah. Rhys, thank you very much. Any fight news for yourself?
Nothing. I was quiet. I have no news. All I am is a reporter for Paul at the minute.
That's it. Well, look, we appreciate you. And look, great to see you as always.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you,
appreciate the time.
I am joined by the head coaches over here at Fight Academy Ireland, Liam Shannon, Pat McAlister. A fucking huge week. I'll be completely blunt. A huge week for the gym and a huge week for Paul Hughes. What's the atmosphere been like so far?
Yes, fantastic. Obviously, the whole build-up to it. Everyone's kind of on a high, looking forward to it. Obviously, there's a lot of guys who are fighting on other shows too, so it's a real good buzz about the gym. Everyone's reaching their own goals, searching to get the next level, and obviously Paul's always leading the way. So a great opportunity, and a great opportunity that I think Paul deserves at this time in his career.
Yeah. Pat, like I feel like this is obviously Paul has had huge nights in Cage Warriors before, but this feels like to me it's another level. Do you guys feel the same way?
Yeah, for sure. This is definitely the biggest night in the gym's history. It definitely would be the biggest fight so far. But Paul always rises to the occasion, and I think next Saturday will be no different. People's going to see what he's all about. Like, so we've been asking for this, so that's it. Now's time. As Paul calls the documentaries, shock the world. So it's time to do that.
I was watching Paul. Like Paul's been putting out some great content on his YouTube channel. One of the videos that he had out, you were chatting in it, and you were kind of saying that you were talking about Paul's character and about him being a role model. Like, what does he mean to this team and to this gym?
Well, obviously, him leading the way by example. You know what I mean? He's the first to training, getting his mobility going. He's the last to leave. He's always willing to help others. You know what I mean? It's what a team member is, and we wanted to portray it to the rest of the guys. A lot of, like, for the years here, we're up 16 years now. We've got a lot of selfish guys came here and they do their own training camps, and then when after training camps they go away and you don't see them again, and they're not there to help the others who help them there. And I think that now that we have built over the years, me and Pat have built up a camaraderie of good kind of people who all want each other to do well, and Paul is the typical one because he's the one of the highest level guys. So if he's doing it, then all the younger guys come through and see, well, I need to be doing that too. I can't be taking time off. I got to help others get their goals. You know what I mean? Their fight camps and all. So literally, we have no time off for anybody.
Yeah. What do you feel like a win over a guy like AJ does for his career? Like he's coming in here, and a lot of people are saying, oh, he doesn't have the experience. Look, he doesn't have the experience against the same level of opposition as AJ does. However, he's a lot of experience from that Cage Warriors run where he had the 5-5s, where he had to dig deep. Just how valuable has that been for his career, and that he can now take that into this fight in Saudi Arabia? I'll go to Pat for that one.
Oh, go ahead, Shannon.
No, well, again, obviously, in between training camps, Paul levels up an awful lot, you know what I mean? And with COVID and all, it was a great opportunity. Like we didn't stop here, but like especially Pat in what I call it in the home, he created a small gym, and they just trained flat out. There's nothing else to do. So you've seen the levels that he progressed between training camps, and I think you've seen that in a wee bit in Cage Warriors, we certainly seen in the gym. And this, obviously, with yes, he's given away a bit of experience. But like at the end of the day, like experience is what? You know what I mean? It's time served. Like, he serves his time every day in the gym, and it's just them big occasions which he's now got, and it's just belief in yourself. Like, and he believes in himself more than anyone else. Me, when this fight was offered to us, it took me literally 1 minute to say, "Let's go." No, there was no hesitation on my part or Pat's part or Paul's part, because like we know how good Paul is, and we know the tools he has and the styles makes fights. And I think that AJ McKee will be what I call these coming out there. He's a real high level, and that it's a great fight for everybody. But I think AJ McKee will soon realise that Paul Hughes is the real deal, and it won't be too long before he starts diving for his legs.
Pat, after Paul's last fight in the RDS, something stuck with me that you said. Paul had been doing his interviews, and you were chatting. I think you were chatting to Pete. And you were looking at us and you were saying, like, you guys don't know. You don't know. And like, even though we've seen the performances, we saw his pro debut where he had this breakup performance. We saw his Cage Warriors run. But there's like this secret that you guys know within the gym that we still don't know. So like, what don't we know about Paul Hughes?
Just the level that he's really at. Like, I truly believe he's one of the best in the world, and he has been for this last few years. He hasn't been as active as we'd like to be, but last year he got a good wee run. And now, coming off the back of his debut in Bellator, going into this one here, he's ready to show everyone the level that he's at. Like, we see, and I've had so many fighters over the years, and this guy's just at a different level than anyone. Everyone that trains with him says the same thing. So when he's over in Kilcliff training as well, like he's the best in the room everywhere he goes. And so I'm just looking forward to everybody seeing what we have known for this last load of years, that he is one of the best in the world, and he will go out and prove it next Saturday night, and I just can't wait to see it. Like,
there's been some amazing nights for the gym, of course. Paul, Rhys, Joe, all Cage Warriors champions. But where does this stack up? Like I put something out online there last week around, outside of McGregor, what have been the biggest nights in Irish MMA? Where do you feel that this fight stacks up against, the great nights in Irish MMA history?
Well, I think it's kind of, to be honest, it's not being overlooked an awful lot because of obviously it's PFL and whatever else. If this was in the UFC, this would be like a fight in Max Holloway in terms of prestige. So it's a great opportunity for Paul. But I don't think really Ireland know the level that AJ McKee is at and appreciate who he is. Even my own partner, she's like, I know it's a big fight, but how big is it? And you just don't realise how big a fight this is and what a great opportunity is for Paul. So like if outside of probably Ireland and the UK, AJ McKee is a superstar and really so. So we're here to steal the thunder and we're here to put this guy to sleep.
Last question: what would you like to see? Like, because a lot of people, I think, do know. Like, obviously, the casual fans don't know, but what we know is that if he wins against AJ, like he's right at the very top. Like that's a rocket ship that's attached to him. Then, what comes next? Because if there's the PFL tournament, there's obviously the Bellator brand, there's world titles. What would you like to see? Without overlooking AJ, but if he does come out with his hand raised, which I'm sure you're confident of, what comes next?
Well,
Abu Dhabi in January, fighting Nurmagomedov for the belt. So he just fought recently, and he seemed to be. They had AJ McKee at the show, nearly selling the next fight, but I think they forgot he's still to fight Paul. So when Paul beats him, then Paul could fight Nurmagomedov for the belt in Abu Dhabi in January, all being well.
Lads, thank you very much. It's a big fight week when I'm getting Pat to do an interview. So really appreciate the time, gents.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Cheers, Stoke, Manny.
Thanks, Pat. Appreciate it. I'm joined by, I would say, Paul Hughes' main sparring partner these days. Scott Harvey, how are you?
Good, yeah. Busy. It's been a mental couple of weeks. Obviously, Paul's just been flat out, so we've just been doing everything we can to help get him ready for a super fight, a brilliant performance. Yeah.
I watched you go toe to toe there. Obviously, it's only 6 days out, so temper it a bit.
Yeah. It's just controlled now. It's just playing positions, trying to mimic reactions, trying to be as realistic to what we expect on the night. It's brilliant to see. Obviously, from when we started the camp, obviously everyone knows how good Paul is. We can go on all day and talk about how good Paul is, but even just seeing the adaptations that we've made from the start of the camp to now to what you would have seen today is phenomenal. I do think it's going to be a really big night for him. Yeah.
How heavily involved have you been in this camp? And I guess the simple question: how is Paul looking? How is he feeling? Maybe is it better?
Yeah. Like no, we've all been like not just myself. I think me, Rhys, Michael Shields. We all play a part. We have different roles, and there's things that I'm not very good at that they can substitute, and we mesh together really well to make sure that we can get him the best all-round look of what we're expecting from AJ. I think he's moving like phenomenal. Fitness is through the roof. It's becoming nearly a problem now that you've got 3 guys lined up to spar Paul, and all 3 of us are getting tired before he is. Like that's where we're at. So I think it's really all come together quite well. As you said there, we're only a couple of days out now, so I think he's just peaked perfectly today, just having that little move around, playing positions. He's accurate. Like when I say accurate, like I really think people don't understand. Like he's pulling shots there that within inches of where they're trying to hit. Do you know what I mean? So it's phenomenal. Like I think we've all played a massive part in getting him here. Not obviously just me. I'm just one of the bodies that help substitute for it. But even with Pat and Shando stepping in, the rounds that he's doing with Shando on pads, things like that. No, it's really flying. It really is, yeah.
Yeah, and like obviously there's plenty of sparring partners, but I did want to speak to you specifically because Paul, like he's been singling you out as like you've been doing a lot of rounds together, and without throwing you under the bus, and I'm fully aware that you would end my life in about 2 seconds, but I did notice as you were saying that you'd done around with him, and you're walking out into the other mat, and all of a sudden, oh sorry Scott, get back in the cage there, and it's like you can see that. All right, here we go again. Like, what does it feel like to be in here with Paul? Like you've been around the game a long time at this point. What's it like being in a cage fighting Paul Hughes?
It's different. I think I think that's a common theme that you'll hear when people say they train with Paul. It's different. His pressure's phenomenal. Like I said there, he's extremely accurate. He's precise. And it really, really does elevate my game as well. Like when we move around, we have a very, very good connection. We can both go, if you've seen the rounds there, we can both look like we're really, really trying, but we can pull everything at the very end. So we're never at risk of injuring each other. We're never at risk of hurting each other. It's very rare that we ever land a shot on each other that we're like, oh no, that really hurt. Like we never get too carried away. We can always get the perfect amount out of training without overdoing it. And I think that's the brilliant mesh that I think me and Paul have with some other training partners might not have that. Maybe it's a skill level that when they feel like he might be he's obviously starts picking up the gears a bit, they can't keep up. So sometimes people will they try to compensate and go a little bit harder, or then the risk of injuries increase and things that happen in training that shouldn't happen in training can. Whereas with me and Paul, we have this perfect balance. He can up the gears, I can up the gears. We know when we're going a little bit too high in the gears that we can quickly just tone it back down. And that's the perfect balance. We both leave training having improved, like we've definitely improved our skill set, while both leaving feeling like we're sweet, we can go again, we can do that again tomorrow, no problem. Do you know what I mean? And that's the big thing. I think especially now, as you said there, we've been doing it a long time. We're getting further into our careers. The risk of injuries increase because you're getting older. You don't want to be taking the same beatings you've been taking when you're younger and you're trying to get better. So now it's just about sharpening skills, making sure when we throw a shot, it's the right shot, right time, with precision, it's landing accurately, and that's it. We're not looking to try getting into big brawls and swinger matches and ego checking or anything like that. And that's the beauty of it, that me and Paul could do 50 rounds in here. We could do 100 rounds in here. Both leave absolutely knackered, our bodies haven't taken nearly the beating that they should take. And I think that's just smart training. We've both been doing it so long now that we can see that in each other. I know when Paul's having an off day, he knows when I'm having an off day, that we can quickly, without even saying it, make adjustments. I'll play a position that maybe he's not expecting because I can see already, maybe he's not feeling it today. I can play the exact same with him. Maybe I'm not feeling it today. Shots aren't really lining up for me. We can work on different things. And that's so important, I think, especially for a camp, yeah.
You're an intelligent guy, and I feel like both you and Paul fight intelligently. He's taken on a huge mountain of a task here in AJ McKee. What is it that gets it done? What is it? Is it a specific attribute about Paul's game? What is the X factor for him getting the job done against AJ McKee? I think
stylistically, I think Paul is a real problem for AJ. I don't want to say in what aspects specifically, but I do think there is some specific aspects in Paul's game. I think Paul's brilliant everywhere. I think his grappling is aggressive. It's aggressive but technical. His striking is precise, like we said there. He has knockout power on both hands. He has the ability to head kick people, as we've seen in the past. He's has a full arsenal on his feet and on the ground. His cardio is phenomenal. So I think playing into all these different areas, he can hang with any fighter on earth. Then when it comes to AJ, we just find the specific areas in Paul's game that fit perfectly to beat in AJ. And I think before the camp, before training, before any of this, the fight was announced, I think Paul's strongest assets already fitted the weaknesses that we see in AJ's game. So now it's just sharpening them. Now it's just getting them on point. I think obviously everybody knows how good AJ is. Look at his record. His record speaks for itself. He's a brilliant fighter. He really is. And if there's anybody who has the mindset, and that's the big thing that gets looked over, is having that mindset, being confident enough in yourself that you can go out there and beat anybody on any night. Paul has that. Do you know what I mean? He has that. So he won't be fazed by the big nights. To everyone, this is a big night, but as you know, Paul's had these big nights on Cage Warriors a multitude of times. You know what I mean? So to him, he won't get fazed by the night. And I think that's something that AJ's had in the past, where he's fought high caliber. He's fought opponents that are quite good, but when they're fighting AJ and the stage, it just gets to them. I don't think that plays into Paul.
How does he get it done? What's the prediction?
I think second round TKO. That's my prediction. I think the first round will be a game of the two of them playing off each other's game, and then I think Paul will slowly wear on him. I think there's areas in AJ's game where he switches off a little bit, and with Paul you can't afford to do that. You can't afford to do that, as we've seen even with the last fight he had in PFL. When Paul decides he's read enough of your game and he wants to start opening it, and he's found that hole, you don't really get out of those situations. So I think second round TKO. Yeah.
Scott, thank you very much. Any fight news for yourself?
I think we're looking at Cage Warriors in November, end of November. So fingers crossed. I think it's either 15th or the 25th. There's 2 cards on, so either one. Yeah.
Look forward to it. Look forward to seeing you back in there. Thanks,
Thank you
appreciate
very
the
much.
time,
Yes,
gents.
thank you.
All right, myself and Andy are here to talk about Will Fleury's fight at Octagon 62 this past weekend. It's only the two of us, no Caoilte here, obviously. We recorded some sections of the podcast a little bit earlier this week before Caoilte headed away on his holiday bobs. Myself and Andy said we had to come on and talk about Will's big fight. Different clothes. I have a different haircut now.
We'll also say now in hindsight, if the Rhys McKee interview sounds like shit, that's my fault. So if you listen to that, Andy, you'll have already listened to it by now. That one's on me.
That's all good. It's all good. Thanks for going up there. It was great to hear from everybody. Big week for Paul Hughes, as we said, but also a big week for Will Fleury at Octagon 62. Title eliminator, Randy, against Pavol Langer. Huge setting, huge moment for him, I would imagine. And he delivered with a big performance on the night. First round knockout, face plant of Langer, huge overhand left, which stopped the fight. What was it, 81 or 85 seconds, I believe it was. And really impressive performance, and the exact performance, Andy, that you really want to do and go out and produce if you're putting yourself into the title mix.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is exactly what Will predicted as well. Like, he told it, any time he gets his hands on his Langer, like, it's done in 90 seconds.
My God.
It was a clinical performance from Will Fleury, and he got the finish.
Oh, I love it. I was like, I didn't even have it in me to produce any Langer jokes, but nonetheless, Mr. Stevenson doesn't let us down. And I mean, I don't even know. It put me off for a loop with that one.
It was a savage performance.
Let's break down the fight as well. Like, Will came out. Look, he was making no secret what he wanted to do here. He knew he needed a performance. He's been working very, very hard on his striking, and we've seen that level up in his striking each and every time he's gotten into the cage. And it was right on show here again. I mean, he backed Langer up very early, up against the cage, started landing at Will, and it was only a matter of time before one of those big shots was going to land. Andy, it was really, really, like, the precision, the timing was there, his footwork was there. Even to the end sequence. I mean, we can wax lyrical over the overhand left that he thrown, but when Langer was even falling down, he still had the precision to kind of land strikes when he was falling down as well. It was really, really impressive by Will overall, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a striking clinic. Like, he looked levels above him from the get-go, and I know I've seen him posting a lot. I think both himself and Richie Smullen work with a guy called Owen Pluck, who I believe used to or still does, I'm not too sure, work on the high performance team in boxing. So, like, his hands looked incredible. I thought the speed, the crispness, they were nice straight shots, and really it was kind of target practice for Will in there. Like, he looked like he was hurting him with pretty much every shot. The one aspect or area of the fight, I guess, where the commentary team, I think it was Luke Bernard on comms, had questions around was, when they tied up in the clinch against the cages, how was Will going to handle Langer's power or his strength? And he seemed to be able to, I wouldn't say he manhandled him, but like, it was absolutely fine. Like,
I mean, you don't want to be rushing positions like that as well. So I thought, look, Langer does have what the comms did call at the time underrated strength and power in the clinch, but I mean, Will just got his overhook and his underhook quite well turned and broke away. And it was after that then really when the finish came, when he landed that big shot too. So, I mean, very, very impressive to do all this while it's the current champion Carlos Vermola sitting cage side as well, who, didn't really buy too much into it, into the victory there, which was unfortunate for Will. But, Will did have him nodding when he was kind of calling his shot on the mic after the fact.
Yeah, don't you bring
Vermola into the cage in that case?
Yeah, I don't really get why they didn't, or whether, I don't know, maybe they've got other plans for him. I know he was obviously previously previously booked, and maybe they're trying to remake that fight or something. But like, it does seem a bit bizarre when you have a guy like Will, who they did seem to be kind of putting a lot of spotlight on. Maybe we're just seeing that because it's through the, there's obviously the various segments of their kind of marketing or PR team, where there's like the Octagon UK and Ireland, but they push Will pretty heavily. And like, I don't know, I just feel like he is a guy that's kind of well known, and he's come in and he's put on 2 great performances in his first 2 fights. Got the submission finish last time, and then like we haven't seen Will put a guy out like this in a long time. Like, this is a very impressive performance. So why would you not get the champion in? At least, even if you're not going to make the fight, build something. I don't know. I thought it was a missed opportunity.
I thought that was one missed opportunity, and I thought the other one was the fact that this was like a prelim fight as well. I thought,
bizarre.
This should have been on the main card for me, to be honest, if it's a number 1 contendership fight, and the big boys, we always put a highlight on the big boys, heavyweights, light heavyweights too. So I was surprised. I was actually panicking, Andy, because I get to watch it on DAZN here in Canada. It's like on pay-per-view or wherever back home, or I don't know how you guys watch it, but on DAZN, it said that it was starting at 10 o'clock, but I was looking at you guys talking in the group, and you were like, oh, it's on now, I think Will is up next, and I was like, shit, this hasn't started on DAZN over in Canada yet. So I was hoping that Will's fight wasn't going to start before we got the chance to see it there, but gladly the broadcast kicked in. Over here at my time, it was 10 a.m. in the morning, and it was Will's fight that was up first, so I didn't get to see the first couple of fights, but I'm glad I got to see Will. But number 1 contendership fight coming on the first fight of your broadcast over here, I found that a little bit peculiar, and the fact that they did
very strange. I mean, but if you go onto the Octagon website, like, their rankings are, Vermola's a champion, number 1 Pavol Langer, and Will's was or I don't know if these have been updated since, but like, he's ranked 3rd. Daniel's 4, who he's already knocked out, is 4th. So he's now finished inside 2 rounds the number 1 and number 4 ranked fighters. And Vermola was previously scheduled to face, what's this guy's name, Samuel Kristovic, who is not even in the rankings. So he's in the middleweight rankings. He's not in the light heavyweight rankings. So it's just a bit bizarre. And then the only other one in the top, there's Popek and there's Attila Vey, who Vermola has already just beaten. So I guess, they're clearly fair enough. Okay, sorry. To give some context, Samuel Kristovic has a win and a finish over Carlos Vermola, so that's why they're making that fight. But okay, that's there, but at least build, if it's Will's not next and they want to do that fight first, build the next one. And I know Vermola's talking about retirement cancelled now at this stage too, though. And Vermola's been talking about retirement as well. So like, what if he does retire, then would you not want to put Will in a
Probably do, Chris. Yeah, you probably do. It's a valid point. Like, what do you do with Will next? It's obviously a title shot. Where does it take place, and who is it against? Are the 2 big questions as well. Will obviously wants to bring the show back to Ireland. Do you think it's realistic that show comes back to Ireland? Because I don't really think it is. Like, especially if you're going with a guy, if you're going with Vermola, you're not going to bring that show back to Ireland, where you might half sell out a Tree Arena, if we're being honest, or if you're going to bring Vermola, you bring him to Czech Republic. They're selling out huge stadiums over there. I think it's kind of a no-brainer, and that's not a slide to Octagon, and that's not a slide to Will Fleury being able to attract the crowd. I just think that's the general landscape in Irish mixed martial arts at the minute, is that these big shows are not selling. Unless, maybe if the UFC comes to town, it might be a little bit different. But what are you kind of thinking, and what the next step should be, and who Will should be fighting?
No, I completely agree with you. Like, we're obviously an Irish mixed martial arts podcast, and like, the 2 of us are kind of saying, well, I personally think it'd be a silly decision to try and bring it to Ireland, because you look what they had there on Saturday night. Like, this was an incredible 59,000 seater stadium with like all the bells and whistles and pageantry. You're not going to have that in Ireland. You're not they have a good thing going in the likes of Germany, the likes of the Czech Republic, Slovenia, all over that part of Europe. Why would you bother coming over to Ireland? Because you're not going to set it out. You're not going to get the same atmosphere. And it'd be nice for Will, but also Will's the challenger, so maybe you'd have a homecoming one when he's champion or something like that. But I think it'd be a really bad idea to bring it to Ireland right now.
Yeah, I tend to
I
agree.
understand why Irish people would want this, but I just don't
Well,
think
it's just being realistic under the current kind of, circumstances and structure. No shows, and I mean Octagon were over in the UK. The Newcastle show didn't, I don't think, sell out all that well either. So
there was nobody there. Like
you have to be in.
Not a side on them. It's just
they're in the interest of making money. Where you'll do your 60,000 arena, and you'll make shit tons of money off attendance there. You'll probably be able to do the same in Czech Republic if you were to bring Vermola in to defend his title against Will. So it'll be interesting. I'd be curious to hear what Will's thoughts are on that as well, I guess. But I'm sure we'll be talking to him down the line. But a good win for him, and it's a positive chapter in his career. Obviously, he's come through a couple of negative chapters. So I talked about this kind of on the SevereMMA channel. Whatever your thoughts are on what happened with Will with the PED drugs test failures. I mean, he came out, he was open, he was honest about it, and you have to give him some level of respect for the way he's handled it in speaking to you before, Andy, and speaking with Shawnee more recently.
Sean as well, yeah.
Yeah, with Shawnee more recently as well. So, that's kind of my opinion on it, and that's the way I'm going.
I mean, I don't think it was an unbalanced playing field there on Saturday night. If I was to hazard a guess. But he's
allegedly
allegedly he's I don't know. No, I'm just talking about the skill set. There's
okay, it's good. Yeah.
But he's served a suspension. He's fighting in a new organization. He's not with PFL anymore. He's had to bear the brunt of this, and I think he's entitled to carry on in his career. Anyone who thinks that the drugs are not a part of this sport are very naive. Doesn't, whether you think that's right or not is a whole other conversation, but it's naive to think that they're not. But yeah, I mean, I would love to see Will continue on. He seems to be coming, not to go full kind of WWE, but he's becoming a bit of a heel, is he? I would say in this organization, he's kind of going into enemy territory all the time, and I would say fucking lean into that.
Oh, lean into that like a motherfucker, yeah. Definitely.
Start being you're not giving me a fucking title shot, and start fucking causing a bit of mayhem. I think it's entertaining.
Yeah, 100%. So do I. And look, hopefully he does get the title shot next. Be very excited to hear if hasn't been any talk so far or what's happening there. But he definitely gave himself every chance possible to get in there for the next crack at Carlos Vermola's title, and that's about all that has to be said. I mean, it was a cracking experience overall, Andy. The setting was pretty cool, and it must have been a really good experience for Will to come out to all those big number of fans and the stadium. You could see him looking around. It's kind of a hard thing to try to get adjusted to that kind of setting as well, where adrenaline is probably pumping, and he was talking about after the fight, he wanted to stay warm because remember, you're outside, you have a long walk to get back from the dressing room to the cage, and then for your opponent and for the fight that gets going. So I think he did everything to the best of his abilities, and the results were on show. It was class.
Yeah, and not to go full kind of anti-UFC, but it is to see this type of just the production, as far as on site in the venue, the pageantry, it felt cool, and obviously KSW have done. I remember
it proves it can be done, and KSW have done it lots of times as well. So.
But Irish fighters don't get these type of opportunities very often. I remember, was it Chris Fields and a few others? There was Norma Park, and I can't remember exactly who else. But when KSW came to Ireland, they were in. Was it in Ireland? I'm getting this wrong. But they were in the cages where they're raised up, kind of 20 feet in the air, and they're being revealed and all this stuff. That stuff's cool, and I think it's just a cool thing to be a part of. So I think for Will to be fighting in front of 59,000 fans, that's a once in a lifetime kind of bucket list thing for a fighter. So fair play.
Fair play.
Very, very good experience.
100%. At least Will is bringing some level of success to Tipperary anyway. They don't have too much to shout about these days. We shall leave it there, and we shall move on. All right, boys. Busy weekend. On the 19th, we have obviously the Paul Hughes fight, which we have been talking about. We also have some action. Dom Norkus, Craig McGratten in action at Cage MMA 5 over in Germany. We have another fight in Brave in Tenerife in Spain. Let's stop at Cage MMA 5. Andy, our friend of the podcast, I think we can call him that now. Dom Norkus is back in action. You were looking confused there.
Where? I was like, who?
Dom Norkus back in action, obviously with Craig
the lad who
McGratten.
fingers the light posts.
Yeah, he's back over in Germany. The German traffic officials need to, have their head on a swivel when Dom Norkus is walking the streets.
He swipes that passport and a few alarms go off.
But look at that. It's Dom. He ain't messing around here. 3-0, looking to come make it 4-0. Has been massively impressive in his professional tenure so far. And Craig McGratten looking to remain undefeated too, Andy, on that card in Germany.
Yeah, like, Jesus, Dom Norkus, we obviously saw him only there a couple of weeks ago over in UAE Warriors, and I thought he was facing a solid guy in Max Flynn, and like, Jesus, he looked brilliant in that one, using his grappling really well. Even when he's taken down, he's immediately getting to top position. He's landing heavy shots. He's poised in there. He seems to have a great fight IQ, and this was a ballsy move to go and book a fight against an undefeated fighter, and then have another one booked for 3 weeks later, against another undefeated fighter in Robin Frank here. So he seems to be, he is an incredibly confident young fighter, and he's backing it up in the cage. And going in here again, Robin Frank 4-0, and like looking at it, he's undefeated both at amateur and professional. So
both of them have kind of had a similar kind of introduction into MMA, a quick amateur stint. Well, somewhat quick and a short one for Robin Frank, and it was the same for Dom as well. And Robin Frank coming in here and winning and finishing fights here. 3 out of his 4 fights have been finishes. So, 2 bona fide finishers, Andy and Dom and Robin coming in here. So I'd expect this one to be a banger. I'm hoping we can watch it. Have you heard anything about how we can watch this card?
Ooh, that's a very good question, which I will definitely not just Google right now, but as we go to Caoilte for something else.
Caoilte, what are your thoughts on the two guys? We talked about Dom. Craig McGratten is also in action again. Very excited to see his second fight at professional. Look really good on his debut, and he comes in here again to take on a 1-1 David Kasuman.
Yeah, look, it's good. Do you know what I like seeing these lads kind of fly over. Do you know, we see the usual cage wars and stuff. I'm really enjoying seeing them going over to these kind of different promotions and getting a view of some of the, I guess, fighters that we wouldn't typically see. And yeah, look, in his debut, he went all the way over to Denmark to make Gala. He had a good win there and looked very, very good at that as well. Beat a lad who was 1-0 at the time, but still, a guy who trains out of Suave is good, and brilliant finish for him. And now he's going in again, another experience, and doesn't look, he's the away fighter every time, and I like that. They're being brought in, essentially they're being brought in to lose. They're being brought in for the home guys to try and get a win over. And I love the fact that they're going out here challenging themselves against decent guys, and that's what seems to be the case here with these cards over in Germany. Looking forward to see Craig. He had a good little amateur run, and we'll see what he can do as a pro. But if he can keep up this level of activity or even try and match Dom Norkus's, then there's a few exciting prospects on the way.
Absolutely, there is, yeah, and I'm very excited. Hopefully, we can check that out as well.
I can't seem to find the information here for how to watch it, but look, I'm sure we'll get it out there anyway.
It might be worth a message to Chris
weekend
or something. I'm sure Chris might have something for us on in terms of that. But keep an eye on our socials anyway. I'm sure one of us, if we do have any access to those fights, we'll stick it up on Twitter, and
we'll send Keen Cowley over and get the live stream.
yeah. Moving on over to Tenerife in Spain on the same day, guys. We're going to
go on holidays.
Yeah, we have a lot of our work cut out for it. But from Germany to Spain for Brave 89, 2 Irish on the card as well. Richie, Smullen, and Gerard Burns in action. Richie Smullen taking on Jose Sanchez. Both fighters at 13-3-1, identical records. Richie's really been Caoilte. I know you were speaking with him at Cage Legacy, the card that we covered there in July. And he's really making a push for the UFC, isn't he?
Sorry, I was on mute. He is, yeah, and he's, he has big 3 wins on a cage legacy in such a short period of time. He looked very, very good, and I think it was always the case that I think we were saying at the time it was always going to be a case that step up was needed next if he wanted to make that push a little bit further, and this could be the one. I don't think he's tied down contract with Brave. I think he's the opportunity here to go out, get a win, and explore what opportunities may come afterwards if he does. And this is a guy who's Sanchez coming in here, and he might have a bone to pick with these SBG fellas after what happened against Nathan Kelly, So now he's going up a weight class now to lightweight is Jose Sanchez, and yeah, look, Richie's look brilliant. So I think he's got his work cut out for him now, just Sanchez, because from what we've seen recently, Richie, and the performance we saw of Sanchez against Kelly, I would be very much expecting to see Richie get a win here, and I would nearly go as far as saying he gets submission quite early after how good he's looked.
Yeah, I can't argue with that all that much. And, a win, Andy, is what Richie does need here if he is to try and stake his game and return to the UFC. One glaring thing that hangs over him is, he's 33 now and time is a ticking if it doesn't happen soon. One looks at the Danny McCormack situation and what she's had to do and their flat out refusal to sign someone like Danny. It begs the question, if it doesn't happen relatively soon for Richie, will it happen at all? It's an unfortunate kind of thing to say, but that's the reality of the situation, and it's not Richie's fault. It's basically some of the limitations that UFC are putting on certain fighters and who they're looking at right now. And I think Richie is more deserving than anybody to get a second crack in the UFC. He's doing what the UFC wants. He's going out there, he's taking fights, he's finishing fights, and I think, like Caoilte said, I would expect to see another finish here, which begs the question, will it be enough?
Well, look, will it be enough? That's a loaded question. We don't really have the clear-cut answers anymore for that, but I think, like, as you mentioned, Richie's 33 years old now. When he was obviously fighting in Bellator relatively recently, he went back to the regional scene and he was fighting guys who, let's be honest, they were several steps below him, and he was gone out and blowing the doors off them. And now, in another circumstance, I'd probably be sitting here being like, almost not necessarily I wouldn't be criticizing the fighter, but I'd be like, I don't get this. Like, why are you doing this? But I actually think, in the current climate, in what the UFC are looking for, it's actually probably a pretty smart move by Richie. You're 33 years old. You need to be just racking up a number of fights in a row. Kind of doesn't really matter to an extent, the competition, getting your finishes. And now, okay, maybe take a step up here, get another finish on a different promotion, maybe not an Irish promotion. It's good. Probably there might be a bit more stock put into a win on a show like Brave rather than, a regional Irish show. But like, all he can do now is to get as many wins and, as you said, as many finishes as possible in a row, because if you're not young and you're not undefeated, well, then you're hampered when it comes to the UFC matchmaker's eyes, as we've seen in a number of circumstances. And he's just going to have to keep on banging his fights. Now, the only other thing is that, will it be enough? I'd say probably not. And I think that's more so around the time of the year as well, in that they seem to just want Contender Series fighters.
Yeah, that's it. The Contender Series is just wrapping up. It will
just purged a load of the roster there.
Yeah, you'll see that. Yeah, if you look at that roster watch account, like, it's just I saw Brian Keller and loads of fighters.
Loads of fighters there. So, I mean...
Yeah.
We're not really, unless it's kind of like a special circumstance, throughout the year, whether it's a short notice fight or maybe, some decision that UFC wants to make to bring a fighter in off the Contender Series. The UFC model here, and it's a conversation that we've had here and I've had plenty of times before, the UFC's model on recruiting fighters is basically circling around Dana White's Contender Series. So, if you're not included in that 10 weeks, your chances become a little bit less, to be honest, especially if you're in Richie's case. You know what I mean? He's not an up-and-coming fighter anymore. He's a well-established professional. He's already had a UFC stint, and he's gone out and come back again. So if we were talking about him 5 years ago, I reckon he's probably signed to the UFC already, to be honest. I reckon he probably doesn't even have to kind of go through that again. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But I hope it does happen for Richie. I think, a solid fighter, fights to finish, ticking off a lot of boxes for the UFC, but it'll be interesting to see what does happen. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Gerard Burns. Obviously, he's been on the same card as well, 5-1 right now, coming in to take on Santiago Pavia, who's 4-3. And Burns is coming in here off the back of 2 knockout losses in the first round. There was talks of him going over to China.
Knockout wins in the first round.
Knockout wins. What did I say?
Knockout losses.
Knockout losses. Oh my God. There you go. Knockout wins in the first round. Sorry, Gerard. But I think this fight has a level of interest about it. But I think the overall landscape in Brave with the signing of Mohamed Mokaev is adds a little bit of sprinkle onto this fight as well, with the prospect of maybe Gerard fighting his way into a position where he could take on somebody like Mohamed Mokaev, which would be a fantastic opportunity and experience for him, Andy.
Yeah, like it's very exciting times for Gerard Burns. He clearly has impressed not only us and people who are watching him, but also the Brave brass. Like, you see, he's gone in and blown the doors off 2 lads in his first couple of fights, and this was a new wrinkle that we've seen. We've seen him fight on the Irish scene, but we hadn't seen him put lads out like that. And so this is like incredibly exciting. His fighting style is fantastic. And now, as you mentioned, with Mokaev, kind of that dangling carrot that's going to be at the top of the division there. I see that Brave are already shortlisting Gerard as one of the potential future opponents for Mokaev. Now, do you think
that's a good idea or a bad idea? That's where I was going to go. Do you think that at this stage,
not right now?
5-1?
No.
Yeah.
Not right now. I think Gerard Burns should 100% be saying, I want that fight. But I think
but
if
you want to have that fight
was,
when you feel that you're ready to, though.
There's no rush. There's no rush.
Yeah.
And listen, like, let's be honest, Mohamed Mokaev is not in the UFC's good graces, and he's not in PFL's good graces, so he's probably going to be around for a little bit in Brave.
Yep.
So there's time there. Like, I would say, but what it means is there's a pathway there towards something that's pretty cool. Like, there's going to be a bit of a spotlight 100%. On as well. So I think Gerard Burns goes in here, puts this lad away, maybe 2-3 more fights, then that becomes a really, really interesting fight, a really big fight.
I think, you let Mokaev come in, do his thing, probably fight for the title, establish himself as a champion, and then Gerard Burns is already en route to being a contender in the flyweight division, and he needs more experience though to take on a guy. Let's be real here. Mohamed Mokaev pretty much worked his way into a position where he was either one fight away from a title shot in the UFC, or maybe he could, on a different world, he could have been given that title shot. So, you know what I mean? I just want Gerard Burns to kind of go in there and get that level of experience before he chat. Look, there's nothing wrong with going in there and losing against Mohamed Mokaev. You'll gain some valuable experience there, but go in there, Caoilte, and give yourself every chance possible to go out and form to the best of your abilities against an elite level fighter. We can say what we like about Mohamed Mokaev outside of the cage, but when he's inside the cage, he's an elite level fighter, and it's not easy to beat.
He's one of the best in the world for a reason. I don't think there's any way around it. So that's so if you want to go in and fight him, and I'd love to see that fight happen eventually. Maybe it would have to be a good while away now, to be honest. I'd say about 3 or 4 fights. You'd be looking at going through the likes of the lads, the lads like Jose Shorty Torres and all them before you'd be reaching, before you'd be fighting Mohamed Mokaev, to be honest. But as for this fight alone, and the path he's going through, Brave, he's captured their interest. They seem to be invested in him now, and when they push fighters, and when they're pushing fighters and growing them, it's a good sign, because it shows that they're invested in you. It shows that they're going to try and build you up towards something bigger, and that could potentially, somewhere down the line, be a Mohamed Mokaev fight for Gerard Burns. Now, up this weekend, your man, I'm not too sure about this opponent. It's at bantamweight. It's not flyweight like his previous 2 fights. I to be honest, I think very similar to the Richie one. I think the Irish lads are being brought over here, and they're going to upset the Spanish crowd quite a lot now, because these two, they're essentially fighting 2 home fighters, and I reckon they're going to, the Spanish fans won't be too happy now, because I would I'd expect Gerard Burns to go in there, and I don't know much about this guy. I don't want to say run through him, but I just rate him quite highly, and he's on a extremely good run and a good wave of momentum at the moment that could see him making it 3 finishes out of 3, you know.
Indeed, yeah, very exciting times. Though all those fights, obviously, we should probably rename this podcast October 19th, because it's a savage big day for Irish mixed martial arts. Paul Hughes, Dom, Craig, Richie, Gerard, all fighting on the 19th. Keep an eye on all of our socials. We'll keep you updated on how you can watch all of those fights as well. A fight that's also happening before we record again is on the 26th of October, Saturday the 26th. And that's Stephen Costello is travelling to the land down under to take on Alden Bates for the Eternal MMA interim welterweight title. So a huge spot here for Stephen Costello, obviously coming off that big title win in Tenerife himself in his last fight. Picked up a bit of not a bit of a finger injury, an absolutely brutal, gruesome finger injury. Like we were horrified in the group. I can't remember who shared it, but that was absolutely a horrible injury. And I'm glad Stephen got himself back, and it didn't play too much of an effect on his progression as a professional mixed martial artist. But Jesus, Andy, that was a rough one, wasn't it? But this is a great opportunity.
I mean, but like, that was the first thing I was thinking when we were like, oh yeah, Stephen Costello's fighting. I'm like, how is his finger? Because like that was a horror scene. That like he put it up in his story. There's blood. It was just horrific. So I hope your finger's well, Stephen, and I hope that it's not going to inhibit him fighting, because I think he lost the top of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, Jesus. But anyway, back to the fight. Stephen Costello's been on a great run. Obviously, he had a couple of losses early on, but he's after getting him picking up a belt in his last one. Fair play to him, going into enemy territory down into Eternal MMA, which is a big show over in Australia. Like this is
massive. It's a massive show.
Yeah, Casey O'Neill's dad runs it, and it's on UFC Fight Pass. We saw Alan Philpott fighting it a number of times there recently, and to go down there and pick up a belt, like that'd be brilliant. And again, I think it's a great opportunity for him, and fair play.
I'm not too familiar, Caoilte, with his opponent Alden Bates. Would you know?
Yeah, that's why I was kind of like I didn't have much to say there at the end of the day.
I'm not afraid to admit. That's it. Like there's only so much time in the week. I didn't have time to kind of check out Alden Bates or his record. Have you had a chance, or do you know too much about him, Caoilte?
Bits and bobs. I don't. Do you know it's one of those things I've watched him, and I knew the name even before. But yeah, look, very, very, very good striker from what I've seen. Has some very good wins. Sure, any guy who's finishing Jack Della Maddalena, albeit on Jack Della Maddalena's debut, it's you're gonna be not the real deal, but you're gonna be very, very good, and he's knocking out everyone. Like
he's a win and a loss against Jack Della Maddalena, and but I mean that's a good level of competition to be in there with, isn't it?
That's it, yeah. If they're putting you in these fights, and and you're being competitive in them, fuck it, you're doing something right. And ever since that loss, he's gone on a 3-fight win streak. He's finished the last 2. Very, very good striker. Like Stephen could have his work cut out from on the feet. Maybe if he can start grappling them, it could. But who knows? It's one of those fights. It's hard. It's going to be very hard to call. But it's a massive, massive opportunity for Stephen, and an opportunity to pick up a second belt in as many fights. So like, fair play to him. And you know what? I'm going to make a bold call, and if there is many, where in Australia is that fight, lads? That please tell me it's
Perth,
somewhere
Western
like
Australia.
It's in Perth.
Look, there has to be a heap of Irish out there, and I'm expecting now get a good few Irish in there. They see the Irish fella fighting and lift the roof off the place, because there's not like an Irish crowd, and there's half of Ireland's over in Australia. And Stephen's joined them.
Paddy Cameron fighting on this card at amateur. He must have a bit of Irish in there now.
Definitely does. This is a classic Irish versus UK fight as well, obviously with
Chris Fishgold's fighting on this card.
Yeah,
is he?
Hey, give us I heard you teasing us there. Give us your Australian accent there, Andy.
Go on.
I
No, I
see you put you on the spot. You book it. Go on.
Fucking Stephen Costello going down under. Oh, Shirley!
It's
not
not
the fights this weekend.
Do you know whenever I see Australian stuff,
get a fucking Foster's or something.
Let's put another shrimp on the barbie.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. I was like, that's
the obvious
classic
one, isn't it? Yeah. There's two things that there's two things that always stick out to me, and they're both off of films and TV shows when I think of Australia. The first one is Dumb and Dumber, when he pulls up in the taxi and he meets your man Jim Carrey as Lloyd. He meets your one. He's like, "Oh, where are you from?" And your one is like, "Austria," and he's like, "Good day, mate. Let's put another shrimp on the." And then the second one is from The Simpsons, when they did the skit of Crocodile Dundee, and your man was like, "That's not a knife. This is a knife." And Bart goes, "That's a spoon." "Oh, I see you've played old knifey spoony before then." I just cracking myself up here. What am I like?
There's also a very rude joke as well that I'll tell you after the podcast.
That's it. You know, we don't want to get
an Australian kiss.
Oh my goodness!
Goodness, Urban Dictionary will be out.
You'll have to tune into the Auld Triangle.
It's like a French kiss, but down under.
Indeed. Let's talk about some other Irish MMA news. It's not a bad accident, Andy. It's not a bad shot at all.
Listen,
Andy, I think you have a career in this if you can pull off a few more.
Yeah.
Well, we had the Irish episode last time, so maybe we'll
have to give the Aussie one the next time. But news that's happened since we've last been on. Cornelio Lascar defeated Livio Balkalov at Heroes 11 via unanimous decision. Lascar being on it was a good win for him. What are your thoughts on that, Andy?
I didn't even know what happened, to be honest with you. I didn't even know. I'll just be honest. Didn't even know that happened. So, congratulations to him, I would say.
What's your thoughts on that?
We're leaving that in.
What's your thoughts on that? I went to the wrong person.
I did not see the fight. I saw a clip on Conor McGregor's story there at some point during the week, congratulating him on the win. I was thinking, oh look, he must have fought. And then I went and looked at who he fought, and he fought some lad that was like 2-1. So look, fair play. He got the win. As extends that record further. I think did I see him land some big takedown in the clip? But
he's a big old boy, that fella, Cornelius.
He's built he's huge, man. So I'd hate to be getting taken down by him. Jesus. So look, another win for him.
Leon Hill,
he beat Janison Castro there as well. So
100%. One, that kind of slipped through my cracks, but we'll talk about now. Leon Hill has announced that he's a free agent. He's leaving Cage Warriors. Gone 3-2 in the organization. 3-1 is his most recent run. But and his last win, obviously, we spoke to him ahead of that fight against Tommy Hawthorne at Cage Warriors 172. Surprised to see this in certain ways, but we've seen a couple of other fighters decide to kind of part ways with Cage Warriors and move elsewhere as well. So, I mean, it begs the question, where does Leon go? I wonder what's next for him. Do we have any insight on that at all? Did we hear anything, or did he give any kind of hints at all? Or I didn't have the chance to speak with him or ask him myself, but very curious.
No, I haven't been speaking with him. If I was to hazard a guess as to where he'd go, I think he's, from previous conversations, I think he's a guy who definitely is looking towards the UFC. So I would say maybe not PFL. Now I did notice it under the comments. Dylan Tuke was tagging Dan Hardy and stuff to try and get him up. But we've seen a couple of FKF fighters obviously fighting on UAE Warriors relatively recently. We're seeing the younger lads maybe over on Cage MMA. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him on the likes of a UAE Warriors next, something that is on Fight Pass, is an established show and will, cater to moving towards the UFC. But yeah, this seems to be a bit of a trend at the moment. But yeah, I don't really have a whole lot more insight than that.
Yeah, interesting times as well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Leon. Conor McCarthy is matched up for Cage Warriors 179 in Rome. The Irish are heading back to Rome. Some fantastic nights have been created in Rome. No more greater than Caolan Loughran's win over there when he took home the bantamweight title. Conor McCarthy goes over to take on Gianluca Rocca, 8-4. Good a level of experience of an opponent here, Caoilte, for Conor. But one that I feel that he's ready for. I think the levels that he's shown in his professional career so far has kind of highlighted the fact that he needs a fight like this to see where he's truly at in his game.
Yeah, like look, it seemed like they struggled to match him before that for the last card that they were trying to get a match for. So getting a fight like this, guy with a bit of experience, no harm in it. And from what I briefly seen of this guy, I think I think it's a very good fight. It's a very good test. I think it's one that's it's one that he'll learn a lot from. It's one that he's more than capable of winning and then building on it. But it'll be a statement win to go in and beat someone that's 8-4 straight off the back of coming in off the regional scene. So I'm delighted to see him actually get a fight after the disappointment last time, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it was. Obviously, we talked to him a couple of weeks ago, and he was very disappointed that he wasn't matched on the more recent card. But glad to see him getting matched up, and a very, very good test for him too. One that you highlighted during the week, Andy, moving on: Solomon Simon versus Walter Cogliandro at the same time.
Nailed it.
Yeah, I needed 2 goals at it though. On the same card, November 7th as Connor. So that's what I meant. The Irish are heading over in force to Rome, and this is a good fight, and a sneaky fight between Team Rhino and SBG as well.
Oh, a sneaky fight between Team Rhino and SBG. I love this. This. So that aside, well, maybe not that aside. One, love the SPG versus Team Rhino thing. Good to see an SPG Ireland fighter fighting on Cage Warriors. So I think that's interesting. That's again great news. Obviously, I'm kind of stirring the pot here a little bit, but also I'm not really. I'm just like, I genuinely think this is great.
No, I think it's good. I think I love to see that. I mean, I'd love to see it happening more as well.
No, 100%. And then additionally, big fucking step up for Solomon Simon. But I think that he has looked really, really, really impressive in his last number of outings. He's obviously 4-0, all finishes. He's looked phenomenal. Walter Cogliandro, way more experienced than him. He's fought some really tough competition. But I would say, when you look at, this isn't even necessarily, well, I'm going to apply it to Walter Cogliandro, but when you look at someone like him, they're kind of a fighter who is of his record, who's kind of fought tough competition on various different shows, has never really made the jump to getting towards kind of like that next level, but is a really solid fighter, is relatively well-rounded, maybe not like an expert in any particular part of MMA, but can put it all together. That's a tough fucking fight. And I think he's the type of fighter who, I wouldn't be completely surprised if he strung together 4 or 5 wins in a row and went on a run. But at the same time, I could see him being the guy who, or not necessarily him, but like you can use in this kind of spot where you've got a young prospect who looks very, very good, that you need to see them against that next step up. And I think this is a big step up. But it's the next level, Solomon, isn't it? It's kind of like, you have your introduction into the professional ranks. Yeah. And Solomon has passed that with flying colours, and now this is the next step where you're going to be taking on those more experienced. And it is a big step. It is a big step. Yeah, it is for sure. But, it's the one where you need this kind of a fight, Caoilte, don't you? I got to bring you in to talk about your fellow Waterford man here in Solomon.
I'll be honest, I was surprised that this one was made. When I first saw it, I genuinely, it's like, this is a guy, Walter's his last win. I know he's coming off a loss now, but he beat Ali Al-Qaisi. And if anyone who's watched UAE Warriors or even the UFC, Ali Al-Qaisi's fought in Brave, didn't have much luck in the UFC, but he was on an absolute stormer of running UAE Warriors. I think he was 3 or 4 in the bounce with wins over Jesse Arnett before he came up against Walter Cogliandro. And now Solomon Simon, like, this is, so that's where the surprise came from, because of the gulf in professional experience. But wow, what an opportunity. Like, this is one of those that this will, this is fast track to the title type of job. I think it's a harder fight than that Orlando Prins one that he was scheduled to have previously. I think it's definitely one he could win. It's Solomon's looked levels above the previous performance every single time he stepped in that cage. So, I'd be looking at this fight thinking, if he gets a win here against Walter Cogliandro, he'd probably be one more fight away from a title, to be very honest with you, because it's a huge fight for him, and a massive moment in his career. I think it could be one that could really shape the future if he gets a win. It's not going to define it. I just think it could really shape up something special if he can get the win against Cogliandro. And
Caoilte, to your exact point there about, this is, getting him into title contention. Looking at some of the recent title fights that have been made, I would not blink twice if Walter Cogliandro was put into a title fight tomorrow in Cage Warriors. Like, we've seen guys being brought in from other promotions that haven't fought in there. Like, he's a perfect kind of that type of guy to be brought in to face, the prospect that's on the rise that is now at the title level. So, I couldn't agree more with what you're saying there, but this is a validating, this validates Solomon as, he's right up there if he can beat him.
I'd rate him higher than Jay Quay Higgins by a long way. And Jay Quay Higgins has been given some very, very, very good opportunities in Cage Warriors. So yeah, no, that's the thing. Like, it's such a massive step, but it's an amazing opportunity is the way of looking at it, and so many storylines as well, as Andy loves, with Jim versus Jim, going on there as well. So I think it adds to the.
Will we see John Cavan in the corner? Will we see John Cavan in the corner?
Oh, no.
I wouldn't like to bet on it, but moving on to Cage Warriors, that was 179, as we said, on the 2nd of November. 15th of November is Cage Warriors 180. We have 2 Irish on the card as well, Paddy McCurry and Adam Darby, 2 of the top prospects in Irish mixed martial arts, as is Solomon Simon, as is Conor McCarthy as well. But I mean, yeah, all of our fresh talent is going on show in those couple of weeks as well. Great to see Paddy back in action. Obviously, spoke to us coming off the Ultimate Fighter House of talked about a fight in November. Nothing was set in stone here. We have it. Ty Palmer coming in here, lots of experience, not the best record, a losing record in fact, coming in here against Paddy McCurry. But I think we're at the stage with Paddy McCurry where he needs to go back and he needs to kind of get a couple of fights more under his belt before he eventually does progress to the UFC. I think I don't know. I'll say this. I'm sure you guys would agree. I feel with the level that Paddy McCurry is at, I think it's inevitable that we see him in the UFC eventually. But I think it was the wise move here, Andy, to get back here, get a couple of fights under his belt on Cage Warriors and build towards the title there and see what happens next year.
Yeah, I'd expect him to be active over I'd expect, say, in the next 6 months, 3 fights or something like that for Paddy McCurry. And I think, this is without being disrespectful, I think this is a step down in the level of competition to the lads he would have faced in the Ultimate Fighter House. But I think, you go out here, you get a finish, and you move on to the next one. And I think we'll probably see some back-to-back fights for Paddy. And as you said, pushing either for that title or maybe get the call up kind of towards, although you never know, it could be a Contender Series thing again, but we'll see. It does kind of vary, but I think that, the UFC are well aware of Paddy now, obviously having been in the Ultimate Fighter, so it'll be a case of just stringing some wins together, and then I'd say he'll be in there in the UFC.
100%. Same night, Adam Darby back in action. Caoilte obviously was scheduled to fight not so long ago. Was forced to pull out of the fight for no reason that he was what way am I trying to say? For no something of his own.
No fault of his own.
Through
no fault of his own.
No fault of his own. Obviously his opponent pulled out. He goes in, Caoilte, against Danny Blundell at Cage Warriors 180. A very exciting prospect. I'm always excited when I see Adam Darby's name on a fight card, and I'm sure this will be a very exciting fight.
Yeah, for sure. And like, it'd be, he's had his last two fights. He's had 2 big performances in Cage Warriors. Even got an Auld Triangle choke there last year. So be good to see what he can bring to the table this time around.
Who's the front runner for the Auld Triangle of the choke of the year? I know that we've had a few.
We have had a few. I don't know if there's a front runner yet. I was promised by a friend of the podcast and very good cut man, Brian, who was speaking to me. He's doing a like a Train Alta type one. I can't think of this. One of those fight project, and he's put the request out if he can get an Auld Triangle choke to finish the fight. Can he get one of the hoodies? So we'll have to wait and see now.
That's a cheeky ask right there.
Go out there and get the triangle first, and then we'll talk after.
There, that's exactly it.
Tell you what, we will make a promise. If he gets an Auld Triangle choke, he can replace Caoilte Barra on the podcast.
That's it. Well, if he does, and if we do give him the hoodie, we'll get you to give it to him, Caoilte.
Maybe we might have to get more of these hoodies because we don't have any hoodies. Is a reality.
No, we don't have any left. We've given all out,
Andy's
we can get him. We can get him remade, but Andy was kind of holstering one.
I'm not doing this next year because
no, we'll make that decision for you, Andy. You're definitely not doing it.
No,
we literally lived within a stone's throw of Keekyo, and it took you 2 years to get him.
Scary out there. It is scary out there. They live in
don't let Pizza hear you say that.
Savages. They're fucking savages on the north side.
Oh my goodness. Let's talk before we wrap up a couple of quick fights on the Irish domestic scene. Kieran Brady versus Shane Mullen at our Fighting Championships 13. We've got a battle of the Gerard Ryans, obviously, for the featherweight amateur title as well. Gerard Ryan taking on Gerard Ryan in that fight. That's the second. That's what Gerard Ryan fighting Gerard Ryan. That's what's written.
Oh, that's what now.
That's Ron Burgundy. Like what? I was like, what? I'm like Ron Burgundy, lads. I told you, if you put it down, I will read it. I was thought this was strange too. Like I never knew there was two Gerard Ryans out there. I was
well, in fairness to you, there was that fight.
I thought this was a Darragh Loughran fight.
Yeah, I thought this was a Darragh Loughran versus a Darragh Loughran too. I was going to say
this is me. I
this really up the document again.
Really is a Ron Burgundy.
Because I will read anything that goes down on that document.
I'm just going to start putting in random. I'm going to start putting in like fighters that don't exist in there.
I saw that even before the podcast, and I was like, I never knew we had two Gerard Ryans here. This is very interesting.
So good they named him twice.
Yeah. So.
Gerard Ryan is moving up to he won. He's had some great performances as we're all aware at bantamweight, and he is now moving up to featherweight to take on Michael Shields, who has been having some great performances in the cage. And it's a fucking great fight. It's a brilliant amateur fight. I'm looking forward to that one big time.
We thought we were in for some scientific kind of breakthrough here now, where we could have cloned two Gerard Ryans and had them fight off at one another.
Gerard Ryan just gets in the cage by himself and starts punching himself.
What kind of fucking dark arts? I was thinking, what kind of fucking dark arts is Decky producing there?
Sacrificial fucking.
We're cloning motherfuckers in this bitch. So he's like, but other fights on the domestic scene, obviously, Elite FC have announced a date change. Number one, it's now December 14th. Back a week. It was originally 21st. We obviously will talk about it a little bit more closer, but we have a couple of fights. Title fight, Evan Horgan is fighting against Yusuf Ukasin. Johnny Duggan versus Jordan White is also for title. Tygo Connor versus Taylor Heffernan. Amy Scully versus Emily Badmiev. That's a good fight. And, I think a couple of interesting fights there on the domestic scene. Any thoughts, guys, before we wrap it up? Silence is golden. Anything, Caoilte?
I think Quilch is frozen on us. I'm really looking forward to seeing Amy Scully compete. She's been looking great on the IMAF scene, and I'm looking forward to watching her here now on an Irish show. Johnny Duggan, I think, didn't he have a good win there recently enough as well? Was it the last?
Yeah, he gets Paul Nolan in last Elite FC. Yeah.
So good to see Elite are fucking banging out the shows now since they've been on.
Brilliant to see. Long may it last, and hopefully we get a couple of more as well.
That's it. I think it's very. That's the one thing I look at these shows. He's managing to put on shows regularly, and doesn't seem to have as much issue. He doesn't seem to have much issues. Obviously, there was a bit furious with the matchmaking last time, but where two guys, the two fights that fallen out. But the fact that we're seeing him manage to put on regular shows might entice people to start travel all the way down to Cork and start competing more.
I wonder is it cheaper down, like from a venue rental perspective in Cork?
I'd say
obviously
so,
the insurance is the big issue for promoters, but yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I'm randomly musing here my thoughts on.
Okay. It's a valid question. We may get someone on from the organisation. Maybe they can answer that for us, but. That wraps us up for episode 68. 68 episodes in, guys. What are we doing? This will be our third year doing the podcast now, is it? We're in our third year coming into
22, was it?
Yeah, so I think next year we'll be going into our fourth year now, won't we? Yeah, it's crazy to think how time has flown. It's always been great fun coming here.
Remember who we had on the first episode in?
Andy Ryan.
Oh, nailed it.
No problem. And then we had give me 1 second here now. We had Nadine Abbott-Bissett and Limo Griffin on episode number 2, I believe.
That was it, I think.
Yeah.
After the IMF World Championships of 2021 ones in Abu Dhabi,
Yeah, boy, that time has flown, and yeah, it's still just as good crack coming in here to talk Irish MMA. Love talking with the boys. Love talking about it in general.
Who's like our who's the white whale, as they say, that we need to get on the pod? Who have we not got? Do you know who I'd love to get on? I'm calling you out now. He'll never hear this anyway. Neil Seary.
I was just
Yes.
about to say it. Yes.
Yeah, I'd love to talk to Neil. I'd love to talk to Neil. And maybe we can make it happen. Maybe we'll just have to we'll have to go to Team Rhino and corner him, and he'd probably end up knocking the three of us out for doing that. But nonetheless, yeah, we need to. Do you know what? That sparks it. We need to get an old OG on one of the upcoming episodes as
The
well.
Joe Duffy one was a great one, wasn't it?
I really enjoyed that one as well.
Let's rub it in. Thanks.
Yeah, sorry.
Tell you what, we'll get Joe back on, and we won't show up. It'll be just you and Joe.
But look, it's great to be able to talk to the fighters, and it's great to be able to dish out the podcast. And thanks to everybody for listening each and every week and for the support as well. If you like what you hear, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, smash that bell. I'm hearing all the kids saying that now. Hit that bell. Don't miss when this podcast goes live. Look, sometimes it could be Wednesdays, sometimes it could be Tuesdays. We came at you last time with a Monday. You know what I mean? We're going to keep you guessing, but we're going to keep producing this podcast every second week. And all is left for us to do is for Caoilte to see us out.
Gur míle maithagh agus slán go fóill.